Good morning. Thank you for coming. Welcome to the first ever Public Sector Green Finance Summit. My name is Ben Caldecott. I direct a research centre at the University of Oxford focused on sustainable finance. I'm also a senior advisor to the Green Finance Institute. Oxford was tasked with helping to organise the conference on behalf of government. The Green Finance Institute has also been instrumental in supporting the conference and related side events. And you'll hear directly from the new CEO of the Green Finance Institute later today. But on behalf of the conference committee, which involved representatives from across Whitehall, I wanted to thank you all for coming. We have, as of this morning, 268 people attending, registered to attend anyway, from across the public sector, including from central government departments, devolved administrations, local government, regulators, public bodies, UK overseas posts, and officials from key partner governments. We have participants from every corner of the UK, as well as international delegates, courtesy of colleagues at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, from 15 countries, including from Brazil, China, Chile, Finland, Iceland, Indonesia, Mexico, Myanmar, the Philippines, Romania, Singapore, Slovakia, Thailand, and Vietnam. So I particularly want to thank those of you that have come from abroad, particularly from further afield. And I think this has been a particularly impressive mobilisation, given that the summit was only confirmed in early July of this year as part of the publication of the UK Green Finance Strategy. So we've had quite a busy summer making sure that people could be here and that we got this conference underway. As I said, this is the first ever conference bringing together the public sector to share learning and experience on green finance. And I think this reflects a broader inflection point. Governments, regulators, financial institutions, corporations, civil society have become increasingly concerned with, one, how to ensure financial decisions are aligned with the environment, and two, how we motivate investment at the scale required to deal with the great environmental challenges that we face in the UK but also internationally. Solving this is a necessary condition for realising global environmental sustainability, and it unquestionably requires partnership and cooperation between the public and private sectors. But what is the role of the public sector in support of the transition? What are the challenges that policymakers and regulators need to help overcome? What's the role of public finance as well as private finance? And how can they work together? How do we create the policy frameworks that are bankable, investable, and insurable? What interventions could we make to reduce the information asymmetries and improve transparency in the financial system? And what instruments are needed across different geographies and different asset classes to ensure finance flows efficiently so we can reduce the cost of capital? These are some of the green finance questions we're grappling with in the UK and internationally, and we're doing that because they're mission critical. We need to green the financial system and finance green, and to do both at an unprecedented speed and scale. And green finance is developing rapidly, and this is incredibly exciting. There's a huge amount of innovation going on, as I'm sure some of you will be aware, and you'll hear about a lot of that innovation today. But what works? What doesn't? What's simply greenwashing? What actually makes a difference? These are also questions we're trying to grapple with. And answers are emerging. What's considered good practice or best practice will crystallise soon. And I think policymakers and regulators can make a really big difference to whether these new norms, these new standards, these new practices are sufficiently high ambition and aligned with what we need to do to tackle climate change and to save global nature. But within that, there's also a risk that we unintentionally permit and encourage the lock-in of ineffectual, low-ambition forms of green finance. And that's a risk we all need to be aware of and seek to manage. So these risks and opportunities make conferences like this, to share knowledge and experience, to learn from one another, I think incredibly important. We need to build consensus around what actually works and what is actually effective, and what policymakers and regulators should be actively encouraging and discouraging. So the agenda today, as well as the training we've provided yesterday and another training course we'll be providing tomorrow, have all been designed to help us engage with these issues systematically, based on, in part, not always, but in part on what's happened in the UK and UK experience. And I think we've had a green finance decade here in the UK. Starting in 2009, we had the Green Investment Bank Commission. In 2012, we set up the Green Investment Bank. In 2015, Mark Carney and the Bank of England started to engage on climate change. We had the Green Finance Initiative, which was launched in 2016. We had the EU High-Level Expert Group, which we were actually disproportionately involved in in terms of UK representatives in 2017. There's the Green Finance Task Force from 2017 to 18. We had the Green Finance Strategy that came out this year and the launch of the Green Finance Institute. And those are just some of the things that have been going on over the last decade. There's been a lot more, and you'll hear about all of those exciting developments today. So, in terms of the agenda, so after this session, there's going to be the first or the second plenary session, and that's going to be on greening finance. We then have a half-hour coffee break. The second plenary will be all about financing green, getting investment to flow. You will have hopefully got some coffee in the Great Hall. That's also where we'll be having lunch for an hour from 1 to 2. We'll then split up. So there are going to be some parallel sessions, 3 concurrent sessions. The rooms for the different sessions are in the programme that you have in front of you. And these have been organised by government departments. So different government departments have taken a lead on organising different topics, really interesting topics. So the first one is an hour and a half. We then come back for tea and coffee, and then we'll have the second set of parallel sessions. And then what we'll do after those finish is reconvene, not here, but in the Great Hall, and you'll hear from Lord Deben, the chairman of the Committee on Climate Change, as well as Rhiannon Thomas, the CEO of the Green Finance Institute, and then we'll have a drinks reception. And we've tried, with the agenda, to try and make sure there's a lot of time for networking, for you to get to know each other. There is free flow tea and coffee in the Great Hall to make sure you're energised. I think this is particularly important for those of you that are jet-lagged, which I'm sure some of you will be. Now, if you just some things to say administratively, logistically, in the parallel sessions, if you take notes, please do share them with the organisers. It'll be pretty clear in the sessions who is the relevant organiser, but if you don't know who it is, do let me know. I think some of the teams that have set up those sessions will want to generate notes from them, so that'll be helpful. All the plenary sessions here and in the Great Hall are going to be recorded, and also the parallel sessions in this room will be recorded as well. So treat the event as on the record. We're not expecting any fire alarms, so if you do hear one, follow the signs. We're not expecting any Extinction Rebellion protesters, but you never know. We might be graced with their presence, in which case polite engagement is the way forward. This is the moment, by the way, if any have got in. No? All right, good. So I really hope you enjoy the conference. It's a first of a kind. I hope that we'll do other ones in the future. So with that in mind, the other thing I wanted to emphasize is that if you could provide us with candid feedback during and after the event, that would be really very helpful for us to improve a next iteration of this, if one happens, or we'll pass on the feedback to whoever is organising the next one. So thank you again. Now, it's my great pleasure to introduce our first 2 speakers who are going to be coming up sequentially. So the first is Dr. Emily Chakra, OBE. Emily is a reader in environmental data science at the University of Cambridge and has worked as a climate scientist for the British Antarctic Survey for more than a decade, where she led on polar oceanography research and conducted research expeditions in the Arctic and Antarctic. And really importantly, she's been appointed as the University of Cambridge's first director of research on carbon neutrality, which I'm sure she'll tell you more about. Cambridge being much more joined up and coordinated than us at Oxford on these issues at the moment, unfortunately. Now, she'll be followed by Tim Lord, who's Director of Clean Growth at the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. Tim leads BEIS's work on delivering emissions reductions while seizing the economic benefits of the net zero carbon transition. He has extensive experience on energy and climate change. His previous roles have included delivering the Industrial Strategy Green Paper and leading key elements of electricity market reform. So thank you again, and over to Emily.